Yeah, it was tough because I had to face myself. And I've had to, like, I'll just be totally vulnerable here. And I've told this story a lot, even with my son. So Tristan is 15. I know because he's the start of this. He's 15. And at the time, me and Maria, who's my wife now, she wasn't even my girlfriend at that time. And we were in Indy. We had our situation. Tristan happened, unplanned. And so all this is going on. And I'm like, what do I do with my life? And I'm going to be real. I wasn't a man at that time. I didn't take ownership. And I was trying to deflect and trying to point fingers and trying to place the blame on her. I was actually in another relationship at the time. So all these things are going on in my life. It's like, what do I do? I'm getting cut from NFL. I got a kid to take care of. What do I do? My best friend commits suicide. And so that was the moment where I say, you know what? It's time to be real with yourself, bro.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. My name is Eric Worre, and today I have good friend and thought leader, Trent Shelton, best-selling author, speaker, former NFL player, does some amazing work. I first met him in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, and since then, I've been able to see what he's doing around the world. I think you're going to enjoy our conversation talking about everything from formulation to career to reinventing yourself and contributing to the world, finding a way to protect your peace in your life. I think you're going to love it. So with no further ado, let's jump right into my conversation with Trent Shelton. Trent Shelton.
Eric, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's been, we were just talking, it's been probably 3 years or so, maybe 3.5 since we saw each other last.
Yeah.
But walk everybody through. I mean, what you do today is you inspire. You have this new book, Protect Your Peace.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that a bit.
For sure.
But when I first learned about you from our friend Jessie Lee, and let's just start with that.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I know it was like for me. This last, whatever it was, September. What was that like?
Hard.
Yeah.
You know, I've lost a lot over the years, but it's like that really broke my heart. You know, I just was with her at a wedding on August, and they said it's at the same table, and literally we were talking about just her journey and her protecting her peace, and we had that conversation, and our planes got delayed, so we're in the airport longer than we probably would have been, and she was just a light, man, and that was hard. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm sad oftentimes when I lose people, for sure, but I cry like a baby with Jessie. Yeah, she was special.
Terrible.
Yeah,
so terrible. We Marina and I flew down there the Friday before she passed. They were just saying, and I had a bunch of stuff going on. I had like a big talk on the Saturday and all this stuff.
Yeah,
big conference here in Vegas. Like, it just, we could either do it on Friday or it was going to need to be Sunday. So let's just go. We jumped on the plane, got down there. And so glad that we did, because, I mean, you could tell she wasn't saying goodbye.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
At all. She's just like, no. I'm going to get better and I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to get treatment. It's going to be fine. But I knew. It was like, just from the doctors and everything else. And it's been such an interesting emotional thing. Like you say, losing a friend like that, like if they're 70, you get it. When you're 80, you get it. 90, you get it. But in the 30s, no, you don't get it. And yeah, gone through the whole range of emotions on that stuff. But that's how we met.
It is.
She said, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy. This guy's great. He's amazing." And so she hyped you up.
Yeah.
You were one of the first speakers in our brand new studio, like literally one of the first speakers in our big studio in 2020 when we did it right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So fun to have you there, part of that whole experience. But bright lights, big impact. Some good lessons there, right? As far
Absolutely.
as how much impact a person can have across lots of different professions, being a bright light, which makes some people in your family and friends uncomfortable, but inspires the world at the same time. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what inspired me most about her is her how she owned who she was. You know what I mean? Like she owned it. And some people, you know, might be a little bit too much, but she didn't care about that. So she gave people permission to be herself. And when my mother passed, and I didn't even expect it from her, like she was a person that really helped me through that. Helped my family through that. And so
I remember that 2020, right?
So my mother passed in 21, but she was transitioning in 2020. She was in hospice around the time. Yeah.
I remember when we talked about it, because I think we did something in 2021, like online or whatever. And you were right in the middle of it.
Yep.
So let's do this. Let's back up. Tell me where you come from.
So born in Arkansas, but I grew up in New Orleans. And I moved to Texas in 7th grade. My father works for UPS, still working for UPS.
Really?
But yeah, he's still there. Like he's been there 50 plus years.
Wow.
And moved us to Dallas Fort Worth. And I've been there since 7th grade. And that's where I would definitely call home. And, you know, that's where I started my sports career.
So were mom and dad together?
Yep.
Okay, great. And the only reason why I ask is it's the more these questions I ask from top people, it's actually pretty rare.
Yeah.
So the as a kid, were you always competitive? Were you always like, you know, into sport?
I had no choice. I had 2 older brothers.
Okay.
So 2 older brothers that were
sometimes you
sports.
have a choice. I knew some that you know, I have 2 nephews. One's a little older and very competitive. The other one is just like could never win. And the older one would never let him win. So he just gave up. He's like, I'm not playing sports at all. I'm going the opposite direction. But so you stepped in because you had 2 older brothers. It's like, all right.
And it was just like that. They wouldn't let me win, like at all. My dad was talking about this the other day. Like they would sometimes double team on me. And so I give them the credit for making me such a great athlete because I was always going against them. And one's 4 years older, one's 6 years older. So when I played against people my age, it was a breeze.
Piece of cake.
It was easy. It was easy. So yeah, it was tough in the household for sure. I mean, we would, from boxing matches with boxing gloves to they bloodied my nose and my mother hid the boxing gloves for us forever. But they didn't give me no slack, but they really taught me how to persevere and have a great mentality.
How did you like that in the moment when it was happening?
Oh, I didn't like it. Like we have videos where I'm crying on the side of the road. And I didn't like it because I felt like, oh man, they're picking on me. But when I look back, they were really teaching me, whether they knew it or not, teaching me how to persevere and level up. And so I think they've always been my biggest supporters. They've always championed me, even to this day. And so I think they saw something in me at a young age and they're like, man, this is going to be, we're going to make him successful in sports and in life. And so my big brothers, they're my role models.
Were they involved in sport also?
They were. Both of them was.
All right. So you moved to Dallas Fort Worth when?
7th grade.
7th grade. So they were like, one was once in high school and one was out in college?
One just went to college and one was a freshman in high school.
Did the oldest play in college or no?
He did. He played basketball at junior college.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And how about the middle brother?
Yep. He ended up getting a D1 scholarship in basketball. Could have went football. Didn't work out basketball wise and ended up going the football route in the middle of his college career.
Did you ever think about basketball?
I did. I was actually a great basketball player. So
really?
Yeah, I played all sports growing up. Baseball is actually my favorite sport, my best sport. And looking back, I'm like, why did I give up this? But it just wasn't fun to me no more.
Because baseball has a little more longevity.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even financially, I mean, the contracts are guaranteed and you know, I just in high school.
But football's sexier.
Yeah, it is for sure.
It's sexier for sure.
It is. It is.
Remind me, one of my sons, his best friend since he was 5 years old, is linebacker for the Houston Texans now. And that kid, ever since, I mean, from 5, was like the star in every sport, like 4 sports a year, you know, everything. The kid just touched, you know, it's like he could have got scholarships in a bunch of different things.
For sure.
You know, ended up picking football. And he's just getting paid now. He got through, he went through his first 3 years, got through that. And then he had like a 1-year extension because he had a bunch of injuries. And then this year was his breakout. And he's going to get real paid.
That's good.
Yeah. He's going to get, you know, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 million a year for a couple of years at least.
That's what it's about. That second contract.
The second contract. You know, he had to do the 1-year extension to buy himself there. But anyway, super proud of it. But it was interesting to watch the passion for the game.
Right.
Right. So as you were growing up, was there any passion involved in schoolwork, or it was just something to get through? Were you a decent student? Okay student?
Yeah, I was an A student.
Really?
Yes, A student.
Wow.
And maybe a B every now and then, but it was an expectation from my parents. And
So they set the standard.
yeah, for sure. Like we would be in trouble if we didn't give our best.
Who was tougher, mom or dad?
Mom, for sure.
On the academics?
Yeah, mom was for sure.
How about on sport?
Probably my dad.
Okay,
Yeah.
a little bit more.
My mom was more of, a protector too. It's okay. But my dad for sure. My dad would definitely tell us the truth. If we didn't show up, if we didn't give effort, that was something he didn't accept for sure.
Good gifts.
Yeah, absolutely.
For parents.
Yep.
When you look back at your growing up years, what do you think were the greatest? I get that your brothers would never let you win. That was a big one.
Yeah.
But what were the other big gifts of your parents growing up?
Man, the first thing that comes to mind, Eric, is environment. The environment, fortunate with my dad being a hard worker, my mom also, but the environment that we grew up in. And the environment that we grew up in, fortunately, we were able to be around. So in New Orleans, we live in an area called Kenner, which is where the airport is. Mm-hmm. And I got a chance to grow up around, professional athletes. So I grew up around a Saints player, Gene Atkins. And the reason I say that is because I got to see firsthand the dream was tangible. When you grew up as a kid, you hear NFL and we think it's just this dream, it's this fantasy. But I even do it with my son now. I call it normalize the dream. So he gets around it and he probably doesn't appreciate it as much as he should, but he gets around and say, oh, these are just human beings that are working harder. Okay, I see the process. So I would see Gene and his son, Geno Atkins, actually was a Pro Bowler for the Bengals. And it's funny, I used to babysit him, but I would see him run around the block. I would see him work out. We were good friends. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is what it takes to be great. And so I just appreciate my parents for always, putting us around things or even getting training, even at that age and being so supportive. I think that was it too, because you talked about it earlier. You don't really see a lot of, especially these days, both parents in the house. It's something that I see often now too, even being a coach and coaching my 7-on-7 team, my son's team, is that the support from parents isn't always there. Mm-hmm. Especially even dad. You look up in the crowd and it's mom there and if that. And I've always looked in the audience, in the crowd, any sporting event, and I can go back to seeing my mom and my dad there. And that's something I didn't appreciate at the time until I got older and realized like this is rare to have dad there. So dad would travel, he would be on assignment. They would have him out here in Atlanta, and he had to go to different places for his job, but he would always make sure that he came back to make a game. And I think that's something that is one of the most beautiful gifts that my father and my parents have given me. To just the support to know that they're there and they got my back.
So interesting. So many lessons. I like the attainable thing. When I grew up, I wanted to play football too, but yeah. I was I was small, but I was slow. So,
right.
so I was like just good enough to get on the field.
Right.
I played a center and linebacker, and the linebackers were so much bigger. I love the position. And my hero was, this will age me, but a linebacker from the Vikings. His name is Wally Hilgenberg. He went to our church, and I think there's 3 categories of males, right?
Yeah.
There's boys, there's guys, and there's men. And boys and guys are very common. Men are pretty rare.
Yeah.
And this guy was a man.
He's a man.
It was so unattainable on so many different levels. He was just a unit.
Yeah.
So it's just like, like in your best day, like right. What in the world? But seeing that, it was, I didn't get to see how he did it.
Right.
I just saw him after he was doing it. I didn't see how he developed. You know what I mean? Seeing all of the workouts accumulating to creating the body and building the foundation so you wouldn't get injured, so you can do what you needed to do, operate at a high level.
That's right.
I didn't get to see that part, which would have been interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of resisted the discipline piece. I wanted the game.
Yeah.
Even in golf today, I want to go play, but I don't want to go practice.
Right.
So how did you mirror and match the discipline aspect of your sports life with the fun, the game of it?
Yeah, I think I realized, and I can't pinpoint the moment, but I realized, and maybe it's, being able to see, the Saints players, or my uncle, he coached in the league. I mean, he actually coached Jerry Rice, so I got a chance to go out there and be able to see, like, the desire is there. Like, that's great. Like, everybody has desire, but in order to live in that desire, in order to live in that dream, you got to have a dedication that matches. And so I realized that at a very, very young age. And even speaking on my brothers, like, I seen what not to do. I seen what to do. I saw, okay, you have to take care of these things in order to be able to live your dream. And it's not always on the field. There's a lot of stuff off the field that has to be in place so you can actually focus on the thing that's gonna, really change your life.
Like what, for instance?
Yeah, so off the field stuff would be your grades, for sure. And I talk to kids all the time. It's like, are you serious about, because everybody has the NFL dream or the NBA. That's a common dream. Every kid pretty much defaults to that. And I said, okay, well, let me look at your grades. And they're not taking care of their grades. So I said, you can't be serious, because I don't know one person in history that's ever made it there that didn't go through college. It's not going to happen unless, I know NBA wise, but you got to take care of that. And so when I started to realize, like, off the field, who you're surrounding yourself with. My dad would always say, hang around people. And I thought it was harsh when I first heard this, but he said, hang around people who has as much to lose as you. And I was
Explain that.
Like, what does that mean? He said, not socially, not from a standpoint of finances, but when it comes to the dream, when it comes to the mindset, because he said, listen, and he would show me, on the news back growing up, when it'll be a group of people getting in trouble and the only person that's on the news is the football player, the athlete, or the NBA player, or the person that's well known. And he said, listen, man, a lot of people don't have a dream like you have, or maybe they do, but they don't believe it's attainable. So you need to hang around people who's going to push you, who's going to hold you accountable, who's going to tell you, hey, bro, don't do that. Don't go to this, don't do this thing. Don't act up like that. And I realized that at a young age. And there was times in my life where my high school coach would tell me, he said, Trent, you're a person that hangs around trouble, but you don't get in trouble. And he's like, you need to change your surroundings because
Eventually
you're guilty by association. And there's times where I've seen it, even in my life, where the opportunity that's meant for you won't come to you, not because of you, but what's around you. It's like, oh, he hangs around that person, then he has to do that. You're guilty by association. So I realized that at a young age, and even with my brother, I've seen him go through things where phenomenal athlete, but he made decisions, and he would say it too, that probably wasn't in alignment with what he wanted to do. So I said, okay, if I'm serious about making this thing happen in my life, I have to give my chance the best. I have to give myself the best chance possible to make this a reality for me.
I've never even really heard it said that way. Don't hang around people that have it.
That don't have as much
as
to lose
as you.
Yeah.
In other words, if they have a lot to lose and you have a lot to lose, they're not going to be in a bad environment. They're not going to be with the wrong people. They're not going to be making those bad decisions. If somebody has nothing to lose and they're hanging around with you and you have a lot to lose, they can help you lose it.
Absolutely quick.
Very quick. So that's really interesting. And I think associations are a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you were a little bit blessed with parenting, number one, some role models with your brothers and stuff, number two, but just creating a little bit of standards and seeing what's going to lead to excellence and what's going to lead to disaster.
Absolutely.
There had to be some examples of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So in high school as an athlete,
mm-hmm.
Were you exceptional? Were you okay? Were you average? What were you?
I was pretty good.
What does pretty good mean?
I was
all state?
I was top 75 in Texas.
Top 75 in Texas. And Texas, big football.
Yeah, as a receiver, top 75 in Texas.
Okay.
Back then they have different camps now, but they had a Nike camp that was an invite only. Mm-hmm. And at that Nike camp, all the big guys. So one player that people might notice is Vince Young. So he came out the same year as me. And they took the top, 15 receivers, top 15 quarterbacks, top 15 DBs at that camp and put us all together. And I was in that group.
Wow.
And that's when my recruiting blew out the roof.
Yeah. So, The analogy that I'd like to play with a bit in this conversation with you is, and one thing I've realized about life, and the older I get, the more I realize there's more.
Yeah.
Is there's levels to everything.
Yep.
And some people are still living their high school days. They're, cause they were all world.
Yeah.
But that was their ceiling, because that's as far as they'd let themselves go, or that was their environment, or that was as far as their vision could go, or they'd start to sabotage their success. A million different things could happen. But, your peewee and junior varsity and varsity, and then you get invited, you're top 75.
Right.
In high school, you get invited into this group. You start feeling like, hey, I kind of belong. I can hang with these guys. I can beat that DB. I have chemistry with this quarterback. I can build trust with this quarterback. Those types of things. You start like, maybe. But there's levels beyond that.
Yeah.
Right? So think about those 75. I wonder how many of them played NFL.
Yeah.
What would you think?
So out of 75, probably maybe 5.
5.
Yeah,
so
maybe 5.
70. And these are elite athletes.
Yeah, maybe 5.
And what do you think? Because they all had the physical capability.
Yeah.
What do you think stopped the 70? If you had to look back at it.
I think,
and in every layer, there's always, you're going to leave some people behind. They're going to stay, for whatever reason. What do you think is caused those 70 not to? Some will be injury.
Right.
Let's move those to the side. They had some catastrophic, injury problem. But outside of that, what was the difference?
I would say, I think the first thing would be in guarding your focus. I actually talk about that in the book, From Protecting Your Mind, Guard Your Focus. And it's so easy to get distracted when success hits. And this happened to me NFL wise, like my success became the foundation for my failure.
Sure.
Once I got there, I stopped doing what it took once I got there.
Because that was another, there's another level beyond that.
Oh yeah. So if I would have came to it with, the mindset of I want to be the greatest ever. And for some people, that's a big fetch, and people don't want to say that because why should I say that? Mine was just to make it to the NFL. So when I made it there, cool. I made it. I didn't got to work hard no more. So even with my son now, I'm like, hey, we're actually building a new house, and he wrote on the we write on the wood, and he wrote on there, best athlete in 2028, class 2028. I said, no, I crossed it. I said, best athlete ever. And I said, I want your mindset to be that, because even if you aim high and miss low, you're still going to be a lot further than aiming low and actually hitting it. And so I think that's a big part of it too, is the focus, is the distractions that come with being successful. Like, oh, I'm top 75. Great. But end of the day, my goal isn't high school, top 75. My goal is to get a D1 scholarship. And then after that, my goal is to get a NFL career. But I stopped there. So I couldn't imagine if I would have had higher aspirations. I think I would have been more focused once I got to that level, once I got to my ceiling.
The one thing I kind of realized early on in my entrepreneurial journey, because in network marketing, there's levels.
Right.
Right? Level this, level up. It's all about the levels. Everybody's leveling up, and all they're going to do is how you view your accomplishments will determine how much you accomplish. So it's like, if you view it that was it, NFL or whatever.
Yeah.
Or this rank, or presidential, Starfleet commander, some rank in your company. If you view that as the thing, it'll be the thing.
Yeah.
If you view it as a stepping stone to something else, and there's always something else. There's always another level.
Always. No
matter what you're doing, and it's not about not being grateful. It's not about, some sort of unhealthy thing. It's just realizing you're limitless. The only limits are the ones you put on yourself, right?
That's right.
So if you view those things as the accomplishment, those people got in the top 75 in the state of Texas, and they were the thing, they were the man, whatever, and they start buying into their own story, or they stop working, or they stop improving, or they're hanging around with the wrong people. Somebody's starting to throw a little money at them, a little bit of attention. They're spending too much time in the clubs and not enough time in the gym. All those different types of things. So yeah, interesting. Levels. Yeah. I'm fascinated with levels, because I'm currently in the process of going to a place I've never been. I'm going. and it's going to make some people uncomfortable, and that's fine. But I'm going. I'm leaving my past life behind, and I'm going to another level. So,
and that's the thing that I feel like this last probably a few years has taught me. When I look back on my journey, the things that I've been able to continue to progress with, like I got rid of the destination so much. And what I mean is, like, of course I have, some goals that I want to hit and places that I want to be, but, I'm more in love with the journey.
It's so funny. And this sounds like blasphemy to an entrepreneur, but about 10 years ago, I stopped having super specific goals. And it was just about leveling up, whatever that is. It wasn't about a dollar figure. Like how many people, what's the exact number of people I want to have for a GoPro event? I don't have that number. Or how much do I want to make in a year? I don't have that number.
Right.
I really don't. It's about, the consistent pursuit of excellence and unlocking vision, potential, future. And I feel a little guilty even talking about it.
Yeah.
Because, well, if you don't have a goal, I mean, all these different people have had a goal. You don't know where I know where I'm going directionally, but it's not tied to a specific outcome.
That's it.
So maybe it's a similar thing that what you're talking about as far as the journey.
It's funny you say this because you give me permission to say this. People know I talk about this. I tell people almost don't have goals. And when I say it, in personal development, it's like, oh my gosh. Because
directional, for sure.
For sure. I say goals are something that you reach. Standards are something that you live by. So for me, it's about the standard. Because if I know if I do the things, if I do my process, more than likely I'm going to blow my goals out the water. And oftentimes we put a ceiling and a limitation on us by setting a goal, because most of us, we're setting a goal based upon our past experiences and the thought that, oh, I can do this because of what I've done in my past, not what I'm actually capable of. So I tell people, what are your standards? Like standards over goals all day long. And that's something that's really helped my life. So I'm glad that you share that, because I go by the same philosophy.
Standards over goals.
Yeah.
I really like that. So you in high school, you get recruited.
Yep.
Where do you go to college?
Baylor University.
Baylor. And wide receiver.
Yep.
Wide out, slot.
I played both at Baylor. Slot my earlier years, and they moved me to outside at X, or at Z actually, my last 2 years.
So you're super fast?
Yeah, pretty fast. Yeah.
So like, what was it, 40?
So my last 40 I ran. So going into college, it was about 4.5, a little 4.5, high 4.4. My last time I ran it before I got signed for watching, it was a 4.34.
4.34.
Yeah.
Man.
Yep. I dedicated myself to it because I knew in order to get on a team,
they pay attention
I need to run. Yeah. Yeah. So I just trained with track runners. I got some of the best track coaches. At that time, Tyson Gay was one of the fastest in the world. I trained with him in Arlington. They all trained out there. So I just worked on my speed. And I'll tell you this, they invited me to a tryout, Washington did. And I'm going to tell you how much they care about it for you. So I went out and ran my 40, 4.34. I knew I ran fast because when I looked back, they were looking at their watch and I said, okay, I must have ran something fast. They said, hey, you ran a 4.3. I said, okay, cool. Well, I'm about to run the routes. Let me put on my cleats. So don't worry about it. You're fine. And literally I got signed with them the next day. They didn't care about the routes.
Done.
It was done.
Done. Yeah. If you could, it's such a big deal. Like my son's friend as a linebacker, he ran a 4.5 at 230 pounds or something. That's what made it happen for him. So you get drafted, you play your college, first of all, and what was the college career like?
It was great. Redshirted my first year, but after that year, I played every single game since a redshirt freshman all the way to my senior year. So
big difference in level of competition?
Yes and no. I tell people the biggest difference is the speed of the game at every level. But you still have guys out there that you're kind of like, why are they out here? So yes, I think collectively you're gonna have better players, but really it's the speed of the game that you gotta adjust to.
Got it.
More so than the talent.
How tall were you? How much you weigh in college?
6'1". I was about 195, 200 pounds.
So lean and fast.
Yeah.
Love it. Any big moments in college that stand out?
Yeah, man. We got beat, by the way, but you know, being from Texas, and you always dream of, unless you're going to the Texas Longhorns, but you always dream of beating them, putting the Longhorn sign down. And I'll never forget, it was our senior year and we're playing in Austin. Game's on national TV, and we work on this trick play, right, to start the game. It's nothing but we come out in a all tight end set, one receiver, one guy in the backfield, and they probably think we're running a power play, but we fake the power. Quarterback hides behind his back. I fake the block and run deep. The whole week at practice, it didn't work. Interceptions, all these things. We actually had a situation where we almost didn't play because we were late to the bus. So all these things, like, this play is not going to work. But my coach kept telling me, he's like, it's going to work. He's like, you're going to play, you'll do your punishment later, but it's going to work. So we go out there, we run the play, and it works. 75-yard touchdown, first play of the game, national TV. And just to hear 100,000 people just go silent was like the greatest feeling ever. The greatest feeling ever.
Shut them up.
Yeah, it was like.
Did you do one of these?
Oh, yeah. I was one of those, and, Longhorns down. And we played pretty well. I mean, they ended up beating us by a few touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but we stuck with them pretty well. And that was the year after they won the national championship. So they had a really good team.
Yeah. All right. So you go through your college experience.
Yeah.
Grades decent in college?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean,
All
wasn't
right.
straight A's, but maybe A's and B's. So it's pretty good.
And now getting ready for the show.
Yep.
Like preparing for the draft.
Yeah.
Doing all your prep work, all your workouts, getting that 40
Yeah.
really, really tight.
Yep.
So what was the draft experience like?
It's crazy, man. So I trained in New Orleans, which probably wasn't the best choice. Going
Too
back
close to friends and stuff?
Yeah, going back home, and then, New Orleans is New Orleans. So at college guy, hey, we going out, so probably wasn't the best choice. But I had an issue like down there. It's crazy. Like I can't explain it. It was like with my brain, and I just felt off. And I kept telling my parents, I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong with me. Like something feels off. And so I go back to Texas and train at Baylor. And what I find out though in the process is I go get a CAT scan over my brain, and this is wild, man. They do the CAT scan and they come back and say, like, I have limited blood flow on the left side of my brain. And this is like right as I'm preparing for the draft. I'm like, what's going on? And so obviously, I'm a wreck. But my mom and my dad were like, they're parents of faith, and they prayed. And make a long story short, I go back and do another one. Literally probably a week later, and a doctor comes in here and says, nothing's wrong with you. Like, I don't know what they saw on the thing. And so that moment was very hard for me during the process, but it was a lot of ups and downs, man. It was a lot of uncertainty. Like, I was projected to go 5th round. I was projected to go no round. So during this process, like, what do I do? And so I just focused on what I could control. And unfortunately, I went undrafted. And so that was the hard part.
Wow. Yeah. So you just, that expectation, just sitting there,
yeah,
waiting for a call. I hope it's this round.
Yeah.
I hope it's this round. Your agent's just like, well, maybe it's this round. I'm talking to this one. They're thinking about this one. You're dealing with that expectation.
Yeah.
And it comes and it goes.
Comes and goes.
When Mr. Irrelevant gets picked, the last pick happens.
Yeah.
What was that like emotionally?
It was the first time in my life that I can pinpoint that I didn't feel like I was enough. First time. And it was the first time in my life where I learned how to suppress that I can remember. So my mom is asking me, am I okay? I'm not okay. But I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. Everybody's texting my phone. And so I remember my uncle coaches in the NFL at the time. He's with the Vikings. So when he was with Atlanta, he had told me the year before, hey, we have you on our board as like a 5th round pick. And so he's texting me saying, hey, it'll be all right. And he's giving me all these lists of people that he's coached that came in as free agents. But right after the draft, I mean, my phone is ringing like crazy because I'm a high priority free agent, meaning that we thought we would draft you. We didn't, but you're a guy that we want to bring into camp that has a great shot at making the team.
Okay. So you got a little bit of encouragement after the fact, but it would have been nice.
Oh yeah,
to get
sure. That's
call.
Every dream. Yeah. That's every kid's dream. You want to hear your name on the screen. And I knew the first day probably wouldn't happen, but definitely the second day I was watching. I'm like, okay, you'll get a text, be like, hey, we're going to pick you, or we're thinking about picking you. And it just never happens.
Yeah, my son's best buddy. Everybody was thinking 3rd round.
Yeah.
Then it went third, then it went fourth, and he ends up going fifth, and the third rounders up from the same team for the same position end up getting cut in training camp. And he's just like, what?
Yeah.
I got to deal with this contract for
sure.
For 3 years while that yokel's not even in the league anymore. But dealing with expectations, dealing with a disappointment.
Yeah.
Maybe the first time, like you said.
I really felt it. Yeah.
Okay. So you get brought into which camp do you end up going to?
So I got brought in with the Colts.
Okay.
Right after they win the Super Bowl. That was advice from my uncle. He was my counselor then, because I had other teams that wanted to offer me money to sign. He was like, don't take the money. It was some teams I'm not going to say, but he was like, don't go to that coach.
Well, you can say now. It's so much later.
I think it was, what team? Man, it's slipping my mind, but it wasn't New Orleans. It was another team, and I can't think of the team right now.
Historically bad.
Yeah, and just the coaching, you know what I mean? And I don't know his relationship with the coach now, so that's why I want to really say it. But he might be friends with him. But Coach Dungy, he was a person that he was like, hey, this guy, I know him, he's gonna give you a fair shake. And he was like, go here. He's like, they're not gonna offer you much money, if any, but you have a chance to really make this team.
You're around some great players.
Yeah, so that's where I went.
Peyton Manning days.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely. Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison.
Yep. So, in camp?
Yeah. So camp, and I wish somebody else could say this because it probably sounds like I'm being biased, but camp, I'm doing the thing. The only problem was we had 2 draft picks. They had a first rounder, Anthony Gonzalez. They had from Ohio State, and they had a 4th rounder, Roy Hall from Ohio State.
They don't want to cut those draft picks.
So I'm already behind the 8-ball. But camp, I am playing lights out, and I'm playing lights out on special teams. So I'm at gunner, and it's even in the paper, Coach Dunger's like, man, these 2 free agents are good. So I'm starting at gunner in the preseason, and it's wild, man. My very first preseason game is in Dallas. And so back home, Cowboy Stadium, I scored my first touchdown there, and the next game I have 6 catches. I actually led all the rookies in preseason with yards. So I'm like, I know I'm making the team. I laugh because it's so wild. 3rd game comes around, right? And they don't play me. They sit me. And usually the 3rd game, they play the starters a little bit, but I'm a guy that is balling. And
you got to see if they got anything in these other guys.
They don't play me. And I'll never forget, I believe it was Reggie. He came to me and said, hey, you know why they sitting you, right? And I said, why? He's like, they're trying to hide you. So if you keep getting all these yards, another team is going to want you. So he says, you're going to make the team, probably practice squad you. They're going to develop you, but this is why you're not playing.
That was good to hear.
Yeah. So, and that's what happened. I didn't play much that game. 4th game, it was okay, but they practice squadded me. I had a chance to go with New Orleans. New Orleans actually called to sign me, but I was kind of like, do I go there? My agent was like, you never been in New Orleans. At least you're here. They know what you can do. So stay here and just, your time will come.
Right. So levels again.
Yep.
You're around greatness. You're in a good environment. People have more to lose than you do. You're hanging around with them.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and then how does it progress? Walk me through the career.
Yeah. So,
because it's so elite. I mean, the chances of the number of people who play Pee-wees versus high school versus college, this ocean of kids in college, the college versus pros. Now you're elite. Those who make the team, tiny fraction of a fraction. Average career is 3.5 years.
That's it.
So walk me through it. What was it like?
So I ended up signing on the practice squad. So I always promised myself I would get a truck. So I got like a Chevy Avalanche at that time, bought the truck. Probably not a good investment, but I'm thinking I'm going to be there. You know what I mean? They really love me. Like I know for a fact they love me. They brought me and said, hey, we're going to cut you, but you'll probably be playing in a few weeks. So I laugh because it's just so crazy, man, this journey. So this had to be the 2nd week 2, maybe week 1 of the season. It's our off day. So it's Tuesday. And I'm at the bank, cashing the check, and I get a call from, the Colts. And like, hey, come in here and bring your playbook.
Uh-oh.
And so that's the first time I ever heard that. So I'm like, oh, snaps. Like they want to actually maybe put some gameplay. So I'm excited, whatever. And I go up there and I call him the Grim Reaper, right? You go in the Grim Reaper's office and he sits you down. And he's like, hey, they tell you everything you want to hear, right? You're a great player. We love you, but it's a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to let you go. But, stay by your phone because we'll bring you back. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, what'd I do? He's like, nothing. It's just a numbers game. So they cut me. And I got an apartment there. Luckily, I had a guy who actually made the team a free agent, so he took it over. But I drive back home from Indy to Texas. That's a long drive, bro, when you're not sure of your future. I get back in Texas. I'm there for maybe a week or two. I get a call back. They bring me back. And so that was a lot of my journey and through my whole career. But even, I'll tell you when I realized that football wasn't it for me. And I think the love, and every time you get cut, and I feel like every level you go, at least with even guys that I've talked to that haven't had long careers, like you lose the love for it because it becomes about business. So the love you had as Pee-wee, this is just a game. Now it's just business. Because I've seen guys do everything right and not make a team. I mean, you see it now. You see guys that literally they will bench so they don't have to pay them a certain incentive. I've seen guys who were okay. Like there's a guy in my brain that went to my school that didn't even start at Baylor, but he was in the right opportunity. He played. Didn't even start. And so I've seen guys that had an okay time, an okay season that stayed there for a long time. And so it's just hard for me to grasp this concept like, man, I'm doing everything right, but I'm not getting the opportunity. And my biggest moment, I feel like my biggest moment I realized that football wasn't, it was my rookie year and they brought me back, but I had very bad knee pain, like to the point where I was literally popping Vicodin in the practice because I knew that if I didn't practice,
something was wrong.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm going home. I'm getting cut. They can't use
if you're on the field or not.
Yeah, nah. Especially a practice squad guy, I'm gone. So I would literally pop Vicodin just to practice. And it was a Monday night game against the Chargers. And I'll never forget. And that whole week, Coach Dungy was like, hey, we're going to use you this week. We need you. But he could tell, man, I was half of myself. And I'm trying to push through this pain. And he pulled me over on Thursday and said, hey, man, like, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel good. And he was like, you don't look good. And he's like, we can't use you this week, get well and figure out what's going on. And that was the moment where I just felt in my soul, like that was my opportunity. Even though I still play with the Seahawks and practice squad in Washington, but that was the moment where I knew that this wasn't it for me.
I just want to jump in and say, I hope you're getting value from everything that we do at the Excellence Project. And if you do, make sure to follow us on all the social platforms. If you look up Eric Worre or the Excellence Project, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere where you get your content on social media. Find us over there. We'll continue the conversation. Back to the podcast. Yeah. It's so interesting because, and also heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
To watch somebody who's elite.
Yeah.
But what they're elite at doesn't kind of love them back at the high level. They're this close. It's almost better that, you're in high school.
I say it all the time.
And you're the star. And you know what?
That's it.
You go a different path.
That's it.
Than getting this close, flying too close to the sun, getting this close. And there's some limitation, whether it's how you were drafted or who you knew or
right.
One bad day or a coach being in a bad mood or, because there's levels there too, right? There's levels in the NFL of journeyman players.
That's right.
That are amazing athletes and then great players and then legendary,
That's
unbelievable, freak of nature, unicorn
That's right.
players. And if you realize that this is as far as my body's going to take me.
Yeah.
It's all it can take me. I've done what I can do with this. And the same thing's true with people who are, let's say they're in love in theater.
Yeah.
Or they're in love with music. They're an amazing piano player. But how much does a piano player pay?
Yeah.
They're unbelievable at throwing bags, playing cornhole. How much? You can be number one in the world. How much are you going to get? Darts, amazing. They're the top of the top. Well, how much does top of the top pay?
Right.
Not very much. I wanted to be in like Broadway. I wanted that to be my thing. So, and that was pretty good. I could connect with an audience and, I could sing a little bit, move around a little bit. I could act a little bit. And I went and saw one Broadway show. It was a traveling Broadway show, Buddy Holly story. And they did this scene that was set in the Apollo, and this lady just smashed. Just smashed. I mean, better than anything I could do on my best day. It was just so unbelievable. And I'm looking her up in the program because she's got to have a record deal and everything else. Right. And I saw she was singing on a cruise ship in a lounge for the last 4 years. And I went, oh.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing like you realized.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
There's a lid to that. And I can be tortured by my passion there for forever, or I could redirect it. But you know what's crazy? Like you're still on the field today. You're on the field today in doing what you do.
That's right.
Right? I'm still on stage.
Yeah.
Doing what I do.
Absolutely.
Traveling around the world, biggest stages in the world, better than any person sitting in the biggest show on Broadway. Seeing more people, having an impact. And it's like a one-man show, you know, when I train what I train. So I just redirected the passion.
Different avenue.
Into a different stage or a different venue.
Yeah.
But I see some of this when they get so close to the dream.
Yeah.
And they don't get what they had in their minds and they let it just destroy them. It eats them up. You know, they become addicted. They become alcoholics. They become mean, nasty people, or they live in the past. If this happened, if that happened, they become victims.
Yeah.
You know, versus saying, okay, what am I going to do now? You know, let's figure this out. So by the time you say, you know what, this was a good journey. How many years was it in the pros?
3
years. So you're just about the average.
Yep.
Average. Make just enough money to be miserable, right?
Exactly.
You know, you're big shot, you got all the stuff, but like, you know, people don't realize, you know,
you're not making it like
you
that.
need them to buy you a drink.
For sure. Absolutely.
You know? Right.
Sure.
So this transition.
Yeah.
From that to something else. Man, I see some people, like I watch how Magic Johnson transitioned, or, you know, I'm watching how Tom Brady's transitioning now. And they really mapping it out. They're really thinking it through. But that's an elite level. You got access to all different kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, people, you're a brand. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things you can do. But then there's other people that like, they really struggle with that transition.
Yeah.
You know, like how many going to go to a local nightclub and get, you know, $500 to show up and make an appearance and sign some autographs and, you know, go to all the VIP tables and say hello and take some pictures.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to do? Or what? So what do you do in the transition to be able to say, okay, did you ever think entrepreneurially? Did you ever think in terms of your message prior to?
Not the message, but I've always been a creative, like music and artist. Like, you know, people hear my spoken words and things like that, but that comes from me loving music, rapping. And even when I was in football, I had an entertainment company. We would throw events and parties and things like that. Like, and so I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even though I didn't really even call it that or know that.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that I did, and listen, it might have took away from the NFL, but one of the things that I did was I was the guy who was always exploring something else while I was in it. So music, entertainment, and some people could say it might have served as a distraction, but I've always, because me being in the NFL just for that little bit, that first year, I realized, oh, okay, this can't be who I am. This has to be just what I do. And it will come with an expiration date. And when it comes with an expiration date, I don't want to lose myself because I'm around guys, like you said, who are committing suicide. I'm around guys that don't know what to do, even if they were super successful. I've seen the guys make all the money and then go bankrupt.
Lose it all.
And then they don't know what to do because for most athletes, that's all you're trained to do. I've never worked a 9-to-5 in my life. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. So I don't know how to get a job.
But you're used to working 80 hours a week.
There you go.
Towards your passion.
Absolutely. And so it's like at college, people say student athlete. That's the biggest lie ever. Like I remember one of our players at Baylor, and this is every school, was like, hey, I want to work an internship. There's like, all right, you want to work an internship, then you're not going to be on scholarship. Like you're here for sports. That's what we pay you for. That's what the scholarship is for. And so there's so many guys who have an identity crisis because they have attached their identity to a sport. That's why I love LeBron saying, more than an athlete. And I think I had that mindset even when I was in it, but I had to really adopt that when I knew it was over. It's like, okay, this is over. I went through my moments of depression. I went through my moments of like, what do I do in my life now? But I felt like I've always been built to figure out the next thing. So I had to literally say, this is not me no more. I had to burn that bridge.
Well, and part of it is coming to the realization that maybe it's not as romantic as you thought it was going to be.
That's true.
Maybe it's a little bit more of a business. Maybe they don't care about you as much as you thought that they were going to. I remember asking my son's friend. He got drafted to the Jets, 4 or 5 years ago, and Jets are pretty awful, right? And so I'm saying, so what's the coach like? Makes the team, all this stuff. He said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have you ever talked? No. I've talked to the coach. No, I've never spoken to the coach. Like, really? I said, well, how about, I won't name his name, but the star linebacker.
Yeah.
That was like the man.
Right.
So what, you're on the linebacker crew, you're out there playing, what about him? We don't talk. Really?
Yeah.
At all. I said, so your quarterback? I said, no, he's on the offense.
Yeah.
So hold on. All I hear from people are like in the Hall of Fame is, oh, it's the guys, it's the camaraderie, it's the friendships and all that. So he said, maybe that shows up later.
Yeah.
But for a rookie, for sure, nobody talks to each other. Like everybody's got this was a losing franchise.
Right.
Everybody's got their headphones on. They're working out. They're going home to their families. They come back. They're doing it like a journeyman. It's not like the passion of college or the camaraderie of different things. He said, just literally do your job. And I'm like, huh. Like now he's in year 5 and a lot of his friendships are around, the league and different people, and people are spread out, friends he's played with that are in different places now.
Right.
So it's a little bit different thing, but I just found that fascinating that like in the locker room, nope, they're not talking to each other. Like, wow. Okay. I guess at a certain level, they'd probably start doing it, but, at an early stage or at the fringe stage or special team stage or practice squad stage, maybe you're just a disposable, you can be thrown out at any moment, replaced by somebody else.
I think it's 2 things there. I think one, and I've had this conversation, I think sometimes guys find it hard to build relationships because you don't know if that person's going to be there the next week. So I know that's a struggle. And I can definitely attest to what you said about the culture. So there's other teams I played for that wasn't doing well, and you've seen a lot of that. With Indy, they were a winning culture, and you had that. Like, I like Reggie Wayne. You see the guys. You always see they make rookies pay for dinner. You see the bills. Right. Reggie didn't do that. He took us out and paid for that. Peyton, his status, like, I'll never forget. He's there in the summer. So most guys, will go off to their trainers. He's there in the summer, and he's working with us, an undrafted rookie free agent. And I asked him, like, bro, why are you out here? And he's like, I got to be prepared just in case somebody goes down. We have this camaraderie. So that culture was there in Indy for sure. And I think a lot has to do with the leadership from up top with Coach Dungy. And so you're right, though. And I noticed that in other teams where we were terrible.
Wasn't there.
And it wasn't there.
Yeah, fascinating. Culture and leadership.
Yep.
All right, so back to the journey. You say, okay, this one's done. Did you just lean into entertainment then? Or what did you do?
Well, I tried to do arena football.
Really?
Yeah, man. That was
Wild West.
Oh my gosh, man. It's fun for sure, but it was, oh man, like I was really low at that point in my life for sure. I didn't want to be there. I was pretty good, but I was just doing that hopefully to go to the UFL. And this is how I know like every door would close. So the UFL, that was the league then as far as under the NFL. And my college receiver coach, he ended up getting a job as a receiver coach for the team in Connecticut. Went out there, ran fast. They signed me. This was during my arena football stage. So I left arena, went there, they signed me. 3 weeks later, the league folded. And I'm just like, all right. And that was the moment where I realized this isn't for me. There's something else.
Well, I would tell you the greatest gift that ever happened is when I was really discouraged, all doors closed,
Yeah.
but one. The one that I didn't want to go through, but I needed to learn the most by going through. It was the greatest gift I ever got. Because
Yeah.
if I would have had lots of choices, lots of options, who knows where things would have gone. But I went through some difficult ones. For me, it was network marketing and figuring myself out through that journey. So
Closed doors are a blessing, man.
yes, for sure. So what did you ultimately end up doing? How did you
Get into this?
pivot into this?
It was by accident. So during the times of me still trying to stay in shape, holding on to the opportunity, maybe there could be something, I started something called rehab time. And I mean, that's what the world knows today. But rehab time literally for me just meant, like I thought about the word rehab. What does that mean? It means putting strength back into a weakness. So I said, okay, well, I do that well on the physical part, but the spiritual and mental part, I'm lacking. I wasn't reading books like that. I wasn't reading books at all. Spiritually, I wasn't in alignment with my beliefs. And so I said, okay, well, let's control what we can control. We can't control somebody calling me back. We can't control all these outside external things, but internally, there's some things you need to fix because, I talk to people about this all the time and I teach people, it's like, man, if you can't take control of what's in your control, it's very hard to get these things that are out of your control that you'll hopefully align with your life. And so that meant going to the gym. And while I was at the gym at that time, it was something called Ustream. So that was the streaming service back then. So yeah, I would go on Ustream on my laptop and I would stream my workouts. So people would watch, maybe like 10 people, and they would ask me questions. And I would give advice to them like, oh, this and this and this. And they say, hey, Trent, can you come back tomorrow? And so I would do it. And it got to a point where I was like, I can't come back tomorrow. So I started on YouTube. I said, you know what? Let me just give some advice to people about life on YouTube. And that's where it started. It started there.
When was this?
This was 2009.
Same year I started.
2009.
Crazy. What you remember what month?
It had to be sometime in the spring. Oh, well, I think it was actually March.
March what?
I don't know the date, but I know it was March.
I started March 11, 2009.
There we go. That's wild.
Isn't that wild? Almost 15 years, both of us.
Wow. Yep.
I just started. I met Gary Vaynerchuk in February and said, I want to do what he was doing for wine tasting at the time. I want to do that for the network marketing thing, kind of as an homage to Jim Rohn and all of that. So, and I didn't know how to start, so I just decided I was going to start. Started March 11th of 2009.
Wow.
Yeah. And just started with no agenda, just starting putting out content.
That's it. That's all I did. I think Twitter was a big thing for me back then too. So I used Twitter.
I never leaned into it.
Yeah.
Never really did. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, I started putting out content and there was a response. And then the major situation happened that made it real for me. My best friend, college roommate, committed suicide. So he played ball too. Had a situation where he was supposed to get drafted. I mean, he's a 6'3" corner, 4'4" guy. I mean, All-American in high school. I don't know how Baylor got him, I don't know how, but they got him there. And he had an ultimatum from somebody in his life, the girl he was with. And basically she gave him an ultimatum, football or me. And he chose football. And our defensive coordinator was at the Chargers and he told me for sure he was going to make the team. So he left football, never went back, joined the military. And I think he had just a lot of situations happen in his life. And the weekend that he took his life, I knew he had an argument. It wasn't the same girl, but with the girl in his life. And he ended his life. And that's when it became real for me. When I got that call from a friend at Baylor who was a corner, and she said, hey, Ann is in here. And I didn't know what she was talking about. Like, so I can't tell you too much information, but Ann is in here. I'm like, what are you talking about? Ant. Yeah, that's Anthony.
Ant. Oh.
Yeah, Anthony. Yep. Anthony's in here. And I'm like, what? She's like, Trent, I work at the coroner's office. Just put two and two together. And a few moments later, I started getting texts. And he killed himself, committed suicide. And it was crazy because I was on my way to my other roommate. So it was three of us. I was going to his house. And we were just talking about him last week. We're like, man, we need to all get together. And that happened. So the reason I tell that story is because that's when self-worth and the content I put out and things that I talk about, that's where it started. And I never want to be a speaker. Like, this is not just a natural thing for me I'm an introverted by nature type of guy. And I made a promise to him. I like to say the word commitment to him, that I would live the rest of my life helping people. Helping people know that just because something's over doesn't mean your life is over. Just because you're going through some things, there's better things for you. And I dedicated my life. So that's when it became real to me. That's when I had an anchor. So 10 views, I don't care. You know, doing an event and 5 people show up, I don't care no more. Like, I'm fighting for a bigger mission. And that's when it changed everything. That was 2011.
2011. So this happens. You're like, okay, this is not just a hobby. This is
a mission.
Purpose.
It's a life mission, a purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah. About contribution.
Yep.
See if you can find somebody that maybe is in a bad place and help them reframe that.
Yep. And it made me work on myself more.
Really?
And that's when I became vulnerable, because I wasn't in a good place.
So tell me what that journey was like.
Yeah, it was tough because I had to face myself. And I've had to, like, I'll just be totally vulnerable here. And I've told this story a lot, even with my son. So Tristan is 15. I know, because he's the start of this. He's 15. And at the time, me and Maria, who's my wife now, she wasn't even my girlfriend at that time. And we were in Indy. We had our situation. Tristan happened, unplanned. And so all this is going on. And I'm like, what do I do with my life? And I'm going to be real. I wasn't a man at that time. I didn't take ownership. And I was trying to deflect and trying to point fingers and trying to place the blame on her. I was actually in another relationship at the time. So all these things are going on in my life. It's like, what do I do? I'm getting cut from NFL. I got a kid to take care of. What do I do? My best friend commits suicide. And so that was the moment where I say, you know what? It's time to be real with yourself, bro. It's time to look yourself in the mirror, and it's time to become a man. You don't have to be perfect, but you got to change some things, because now you have a little boy that's looking at you every single day. And I couldn't look in the mirror and tell him, if I was to give him my life and say, here you go, I don't think it would have been a gift. It would have been a curse. So I said, I want to make sure if I give him my life, it's a gift to say, look, yes, I've been through ups and downs. I've done wrong. I've done a lot of right. But at the end of the day, I know that I'm a man of purpose. And so that changed everything for me. So I had to cut off some friendships. I had to leave certain environments. I had to stop certain things that I was doing, you know, drinking or even drugs at the time. And I had to really get back to figure out, who is Trent Shelton without all of this? Because I didn't know. And I was so afraid to face myself. And so that was the moment where I did the deep work, and still doing that work to this day.
Sure. And how did it manifest in what you were doing, like what you were physically doing in your work?
Yeah. So I had some self-published books at the time, but it was my videos. So my videos were me talking to me. It was me obviously sharing advice, but I was talking to myself.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like people teach best what they need to learn most.
There you go.
You know, isn't that funny? It's like your inner monologue can be helpful to somebody else.
Yeah.
While you're trying to find it.
Yep. And that's what gave me permission to be transparent. I love to say, your transparency will lead to your transformation. Your transparency will lead to other people's transformation. And once I realized, like, oh, snaps, other people are dealing with this too. Oh, this is helping people. Now it gave a purpose to my past pain. Now I realize, oh, I didn't just go through that for myself. I went through that for other people. So even now when I go through things, I'm always telling myself, this is just gonna be a lesson that either I learn later on or I give to somebody else, whether it's my kids or a conversation that I had to say, yeah, I've been through that too, but you can get through it. So yeah, I think that was the moment for me, is realizing and sharing and creating value for people that I had value. Because for so long in my life, especially in that season, I didn't feel I was valuable. And what a lot of us do, we suppress, we don't speak out because we have shame, we have guilt. We feel like, who would ever want to hear from my story? I'm not qualified enough. All these things I put on my life. But when I started to share, people started to respond.
You know, what's interesting also though, is some people misinterpret this. It's like, well, you know, when I am transparent and I'm authentic, you know, everybody just calls me a whiner, a complainer, because you can go there.
Absolutely.
If you're transparent and you stay in the dark place, you don't help anybody. All you are is complaining. So you know what being transparent and authentic forces you to do? Share that, and then what you're going to do about it.
There you go.
You know, because normally you don't even really think about what you're going to do about it. It's like, you know, I'm having a really bad day, but
this is what I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I'm just going to tough it out. And just saying it kind of forces you to do it.
That's right.
So I learned to like be yourself. Like a person early on just said, gave me maybe the worst advice, which was be yourself.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like myself and I wasn't proud of myself and I didn't admire myself, but I needed to put a qualification, be my best self. Go ahead and talk about my challenges. But then even if I hadn't thought through what I was going to do about them, then solve my problem in front of other people.
That's right.
As an example. So it's like, so I struggle with this and this and this, but here's what I'm doing about it. I had this problem and this challenge and here's what I'm doing about it. So you didn't leave them in a dark place.
Nah.
Or yourself in a dark place. Because if you repeat your transparent authenticity that's negative and toxic,
that's terrible.
You're reinforcing really bad shit in your life.
Yeah.
Versus, yes, this is a reality and I struggle with this and this is my journey and this is my challenge, but here's what I'm doing about it. Now somebody can relate. I'm like that too. And here's a path.
That's right.
Here's how I get out.
I always say, be the greatest you, right?
Yeah,
Don't just be yourself, be the greatest you. And I tell people to this day, I'm glad you pointed that out because I literally been preaching lately, like don't get addicted to your sad story. And I think so many people are getting addicted to their sad story because, they feel worth in it. They have a little ego tied to it. And I was like, okay, you went through it. And that was probably one of the biggest catalysts for me. I was so afraid, bro, to be the grandfather or father to talk about my sad story.
Yeah.
I wish I would have, or this or that. Like that frightened me.
Those people who we all know that they're like a human jukebox.
Yeah.
As soon as something comes up, they're going to tell you that story that they told a million times that somehow they think is giving them sympathy or validation or significance.
Yeah.
And all it is everybody's like, here they go again.
That's right.
Same old thing. I heard this quote a couple of days ago and it's so good. And the quote, and I don't know who it's from, but we are best suited to help the people we used to be.
That's true.
Isn't that interesting?
I think so.
Somebody I was a year ago, I can help that person.
That's right.
Somebody who I was 30 years ago, I can really help that person.
That's right.
Because I was there and I can let them know that there's a path, there's a way out.
That's right.
Interesting. So your career progresses.
Mm-hmm.
You go beyond just sharing videos to
like
creating content, creating spaces, creating, healing moments, but also inspirational stuff.
Yeah.
I've met, from what you do on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And talk to me about this book.
Yeah.
Protecting Your Peace. 9 unapologetic principles for thriving in a chaotic world. And it is a chaotic world. It's changing in light speed. Why did you call them unapologetic principles?
Yeah, because I wanted people, so principle 3 was going to be know your worth, but I wanted it to be called demand your worth. Because I feel like this is the season where, or just in your life, you got to be unapologetic. We're so apologetic about things. I always say, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. At some point, unapologetic doesn't mean rude. It doesn't mean that you think you're above somebody. It just means that, I understand what I'm fighting for and I'm going to stand on that. So this book, man, those words were my guiding force since 2009, protect your peace. And it became real in 2016 and we can go down that path and that story. But
yeah, please.
2016. So let me back up. So I realized in my life, and I don't know if you can relate, but I had my everything, what I thought was everything, but I was still kind of missing something. So I realized okay, there has to be something more than just the things. And I like things, but it's has to be more than just the things. And so I asked myself, what am I missing? And I was like, man, I don't have peace in my life. And I believe peace is the greatest currency. I think if you ask somebody, would you rather have whatever, the world or peace? I think we'll choose peace because we understand peace is something that can help you through lack and abundance. And when I lost football, I realized that that's what I needed in my life. And so 2016.
I got to back up.
Go ahead.
1 second. It said peace helps you through lack
and abundance.
And abundance.
Yeah.
So not having enough or
Yeah.
having it all.
Yeah.
You can lack peace in both environments.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I like I said, I just think a life without peace is nothing. I don't care what you have, because we've seen it. I've seen people that I know are no longer here and that had everything. But in conversations, I know they didn't have peace in their life. And so I said, man, I have to prioritize my peace. And peace is my guiding force in my life. And sometimes it makes me miss on opportunities. Sometimes, it keeps me in a place of where I probably could do more, but my peace is telling me, to settle down and control your pace. And so, it's different for everybody, but I think everybody would agree. And I think more than ever, you're hearing it now. A lot of people now are talking about protect my peace, and I need peace in my life. And so 2016 is when it became real for me. So I was on a 32 city tour, my own tour. We did all the major cities, did a few outside the country, and it was, public speaking. And I was burnt out. I was burnt out from the tour for sure, but I was burnt out because of what it was surrounding my life. I had issues personally, issues professionally. I'm managing employees and all these things, and I'm still giving my all to everybody. So I literally would, as I would call, smile for the camera and die behind the scenes. I would fill everybody up on stage, and I would muster the strength to go, hey, let's go out here. And really it was performing at that point, because I wasn't being true to how I really felt. But I said,
it was a show.
Yeah, I got it, but I still got to give people what they need. And San Francisco was my breaking point. I go out there, give an incredible event. I fill people up, and I go backstage, and I'm bawling like a baby. Nobody knows, because I don't want nobody to see. And they had it's like, some theaters, like they have seem like a movie, like the alleyway in the back. And so I go out there, and I'm standing out there just like, is this it? Like, something is missing from my life. I mean, it's 1,200 people out there. The tour is going great financially. Everything's good, but it's like something is missing. Like, and the truth is I wasn't taking care of myself, mind, body, and soul. And I see this figure walking down. It was a homeless man, what I would presume. And he sees me. So the first thing I do is like, I have money in my pocket. I want to feel good about myself. Let me bless this guy. So he comes up to me and he says, hey, he said, you're the guy that's on the marquee. And I say, yeah. So my name is Trent. He's like, yeah, I know you are. I see your name and everybody's here to see you. And literally the guy said, it must suck to be you. And at first, I get in defense mode, like, what? Like, you don't know me. We say, yeah. He said, I see you. You look depleted. You look empty. I see your eyes. You've been crying. And he said, it must suck to be you. And so what I'll do, instead of addressing, I reach in my pocket and I try to push him along. So I don't want to address the conversation. Had $100. He said, no, I don't want that. He said, don't feel sorry for me. I feel sorry for you. And he said, it may look like on the outside I have nothing, but I have everything because I have peace in my life. And in that moment, having that conversation, I made a decision, and the video's still on Facebook somewhere. I'm actually by the Golden Gate Bridge, and I went live and I talked about what peace meant to me. I got in my car. I told my team, hey, I'll meet y'all later. Went out there and I sat down and I said, you know what, from this day forward, I'm going to prioritize my peace in my life. And that changed my life forever when it comes to those three words.
What'd that look like?
Man,
how did that manifest?
Yeah, so it looked like me setting boundaries.
Saying no.
Saying no, even saying yes too.
Yeah.
Saying yes to the right thing, but saying no. And I talk about this in the book with setting boundaries. I think we're so afraid for two reasons. Number one, we feel guilty for setting boundaries. We feel like if I set boundaries, I'm leaving these people behind and I'm keeping people out. That's not the case. Because every time you say yes when you want to say no, and I'm not talking about on little things. I'm talking about on major things where you need to say no. Every time you say yes, you're starting a war within yourself. And that war will eat you alive. Every time you say sure, when you don't want to do it or know you don't need to keep doing it, you start a war within yourself. And most people are choosing the war within themselves and allowing the outside world to be at peace. And that was me. I was a triple P, a professional people pleaser. I wanted to make everybody happy. I wanted to make sure everybody was good. I wanted to take care of everybody. So I had to set a boundary. And I realized the boundary was set once I stopped feeling guilty. And number two, once I stopped worrying about the outcome of it. Because that's another thing. We worry about setting a boundary because what's going to come with it? If I fire this person that I know I need to fire, like that I know I need to, what's going to come with that? The uncomfortable conversations, maybe the talking on the internet about, who I am as a person, right? Because when you stop doing something for somebody, everything changes. And so I say, you know what? I can't allow that to control me no more. And so I set the boundary. And this is what I want to say. What helped me was realizing that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. Boundaries aren't there necessarily to keep the wrong things out. They can. They can become a wall when people keep disrespecting your boundaries. But boundaries to me are more so bridges to let the right things in. So I asked myself, what do I need in my life? I need peace. I need clarity. I need whatever it is. Okay, then what bridge do I need to build, boundary I need to set to receive those things in my life? And it was two areas. Externally, I had to make decisions, and internally, I had to change my habits. I had to stop doing certain things to experience the life I want to live. And so that really helped me get on the path of experiencing peace. And when I started to remove these things, it was hard, but I felt a sense of weight lifted. Because for so long, I think as men, we're taught to strength is shown in how much you can carry. And I think that's true in a certain perspective, but we're taught that strength is shown in how much you can carry. But I realize that strength is more often shown in how much you can let go of. I don't think it's a badge of honor to say I'm carrying all these things. Like, I know I used to, but I let go of that idea and say, you know what? I don't want to carry these things anymore. I want to carry the right things in my life. And so setting boundaries was the first principle that really helped me get on that road of protecting my peace.
And it resulted in the book. I'm glad you put it out.
Yeah.
So if people want to get this, I'm sure they can get it on Amazon and everything else.
Yeah.
Is there any other place?
Yeah, TrentShelton.com.
Trent Shelton, and you can learn about all your stuff.
Absolutely.
That all of your videos and courses and
absolutely
speaking and everything else.
Yes, sir.
You do some spoken word stuff too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which I'm jealous of. Because man, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, it's tough.
Stuff. Yeah, performance art.
Yes, sir.
Love it. Protect your energy, part 1.
Yep.
Set boundaries, disconnect often, and demand your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Protect your mind, part 2. Trust your vision, guard your focus, very important, shift your perspective.
Yeah.
And part 3, protect your soul. Simplify happiness, align internally, and live in fulfillment. And overall conclusion, protect your life.
That's right.
Design the life that you want.
That's right.
And make it real.
Make it real.
So let me close by just asking this. Mom and dad gave you a foundation. Your family gave you a foundation to be able to build on. First, talk about your dad. Tell me about where he fits in your life currently.
My number one hero. Easy. Number one hero. And if you knew him, a lot of people do. He's actually more popular than me. Yeah, he sings at games, and it's hard for me to explain it, but everybody in Texas, especially Dallas-Fort Worth,
What's
he's like
his name?
George Shelton. So everybody knows him. He's the dad to a lot of kids that, weren't his kids. So he's the father to the fatherless. And I've seen it growing up. I've seen kids on our phone bills, and I'm like, why are you paying for this kid? Like, he gives money away. Like, it's incredible. And so his loving heart and what he's went through. I mean, he's lost his wife, his mom, in a span of 2 weeks in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I still seen him show up with joy, happiness, still helping people. It didn't change him. And so he's a guy that if I can be half the man that he is, like I would be very successful and happy. So that's what I strive to be. Have a good real model in my life.
And talk about your mom.
My mom,
2021.
Yeah.
When just after we met,
mm-hmm.
she was at the last stages.
Yeah.
If your mom was here today,
yeah,
and I asked her, what would she say about you?
She would say, that's my baby boy. And ever since he was little, I knew he had the gift of doing what he's doing today. She would say that she would bring me around to these conferences that she would go to because my other brothers didn't want to go. And so I would be with her. And she would tell you that it was spoken over my life at a young age to be able to impact many. And my mom, she's the foundation for it all. So the man you see in my dad is because of my mom. And I'll never forget at her service, it was during COVID and it was still packed. And everybody there told me, said, I've had so many private conversations with your mom. And it got to the point where this is what your mom did for me. She paid my bills. She did this, she did that. And I never knew those things. So she was a woman that did so much for people that she didn't want the recognition for. And she was a woman that taught me this as I close here with you, that your life isn't multiplied through your possessions, but through your purpose. And that's what I saw when we laid her to rest, is her purpose being multiplied through so many different people of who she was as a woman, as a mentor, as a leader. And I didn't realize that. So she's the reason like that book and everything that I've done is being done because she gave me the foundation for it.
The gift of great parents.
That's right.
And even with great parents, you have your own crossroads. You gotta figure out your own stuff.
That's right.
As an adult.
Yeah.
Where there are times when the foundation's there, but you still have some decisions to make.
Absolutely.
Right. And for those that don't have great parents, it starts with you today.
That's right.
Becoming a great parent. If your parents weren't great, it's a good opportunity for you to learn the best and discard the worst.
That's right.
You know, have the meat, spit out the bones, and become a good parent starting today, because the legacy is a big thing. So Trent, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate you, and keep doing amazing work.
Thank you.
The world needs it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
So that's my conversation with Trent Shelton. If you enjoyed it, make sure you go to trentshelton.com, get a copy of his book, check out his work. I think you're going to really appreciate it, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. He's just an amazing guy. So also, if you got value, make sure you like what we're doing. Make sure you help spread the word, get the message out to more people. That's why we do what we do. All right. So go out there, make your life amazing, protect your peace, and I'll see you next time.